Inferno in Gaza, a night of unfathomable loss. The night sky over Rafah, usually a tapestry of stars, was ripped apart by the terrifying roar of fighter jets. It was a scene straight out of hell. Missiles armed with unimaginable destructive power rained down upon the densely populated refugee camp. Tents, flimsy shelters offering a semblance of home, ignited like tinder. The air, thick with the stench of explosives and burning flesh, echoed with the screams of men, women, and children. It was a night of unimaginable horror, a night seared into the collective memory of Rafah, a night where death visited with merciless fury. The world watched in horror as images of the carnage flickered across television screens. Twisted metal skeletons of what were once homes lay strewn amidst the rubble. The lifeless bodies of children, their innocence extinguished, served as a chilling indictment of the brutal reality of war. Medics, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the disaster, struggled to tend to the wounded, their eyes betraying the profound emotional toll exacted by the relentless onslaught. The stench of death hung heavy in the air, a grim testament to the devastating consequences of a conflict that had spiraled tragically out of control. In the aftermath of the bombing, a deafening silence descended upon the once teeming refugee camp. The survivors, many of whom had lost everything, wandered amidst the ruins, their faces etched with grief and disbelief. The eyes of the world, often desensitized to the seemingly endless cycle of violence in the Middle East, were momentarily focused on the raw human cost of this latest tragedy. But for the people of Rafah, the scars of this night, both physical and emotional, would linger long after the news cameras had moved on. Rafah, a history steeped in conflict. To understand the profound impact of the Rafah bombing, one must delve into the troubled history of this densely populated strip of land. Wedged between Egypt and Israel, the Gaza Strip and Rafah within it has been a persistent flashpoint in the seemingly intractable Arab-Israeli conflict. Originally inhabited by Palestinian refugees displaced during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, Rafah has endured decades of occupation, violence, and humanitarian crises, its people trapped in a relentless cycle of displacement and dispossession. The establishment of Israeli settlements within the Gaza Strip further inflamed tensions, creating a tinderbox of resentment and hostility. The construction of these settlements, deemed illegal under international law, encroached upon Palestinian land and resources, further exacerbating the already dire living conditions within the overcrowded refugee camps. The presence of these settlements served as a constant reminder of the power imbalance that defined the relationship between the occupier and the occupied, fueling a sense of desperation and despair among the Palestinian population. The withdrawal of Israeli settlers from Gaza in 2005, while hailed by some as a step towards peace, did little to alleviate the suffering of the people of Rafah. The Israeli military maintained strict control over the borders, effectively transforming Gaza into an open-air prison. The imposition of a crippling blockade, ostensibly for security reasons, severely restricted the flow of essential goods and services into Gaza, plunging the population into a humanitarian crisis characterized by widespread poverty, unemployment, and a crumbling infrastructure. Voices from the rubble, tales of survival and loss. The true horror of that night is best conveyed not through sterile statistics or geopolitical analysis, but through the raw, heart-wrenching testimonies of those who lived through it. A young mother, cradling the lifeless body of her infant child, her eyes hollowed by grief, whispered a chilling account of the night the sky turned to fire. Her husband, his face contorted in an expression of unbearable pain, spoke of the desperate search for his missing children amidst the smoldering ruins of their home, his voice cracking with each syllable. An elderly man, his weathered face a testament to a life marred by conflict, recounted the harrowing tale of his escape from his collapsing home, his frail body trembling with each recalled detail. He spoke of the deafening roar of the bombs, the blinding flashes that illuminated the night sky, and the overwhelming stench of death that permeated the air. His words, imbued with the weight of experience and the profound sorrow of loss, painted a vivid picture of the chaos and terror that reigned that night. A young boy, his innocence shattered by the horrors he had witnessed, described the moment his world was torn apart. He spoke of the terror that gripped his heart as the bombs rained down, the desperate scramble for safety amidst the collapsing buildings, and the heart-wrenching cries of his neighbors trapped beneath the rubble. His words, barely audible through his sobs, served as a poignant reminder of the devastating impact of conflict on the most vulnerable members of society. The Rafah bombing sent shockwaves across the globe, provoking widespread condemnation and outrage. Human rights organizations, aghast at the scale of the carnage, issued scathing condemnations of the indiscriminate nature of the attack, pointing to the high civilian death toll as evidence of war crimes. The United Nations, its pronouncements often dismissed as toothless rhetoric, called for an immediate ceasefire and an independent investigation into the incident. The attack on Rafah ignited a firestorm of controversy, reigniting the debate over the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the role of the international community in seeking a peaceful resolution. Governments around the world faced mounting pressure to take concrete action to address the deteriorating situation in Gaza and hold those responsible for the Rafah bombing accountable. The incident served as a stark reminder of the human cost of the decades-long conflict and the urgent need for a just and lasting peace. The political fallout from the Rafah bombing was swift and far-reaching. The incident threatened to derail fragile peace talks, with both sides accusing the other of perpetrating the attack and using it to their advantage. The already tenuous relationship between Israel and its Arab neighbors further deteriorated, with several countries withdrawing their ambassadors in protest. The attack on Rafah served as a stark reminder of the complexities and intractability of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, a conflict that had claimed countless lives and defied numerous attempts at resolution. The Rafah bombing, while a particularly egregious example, is but one tragic chapter in the ongoing saga of suffering and violence that has come to define the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The failure of the international community to find a just and lasting solution to this seemingly intractable conflict has had devastating consequences for both Palestinians and Israelis, condemning generations to a cycle of violence and despair. The time for platitudes and empty gestures has long since passed. The Rafah bombing must serve as a wake-up call, a stark reminder that the pursuit of peace requires more than words, it demands concrete action. The international community must move beyond its traditional role as a passive observer, content to issue condemnations and resolutions that are routinely ignored. It must actively engage with all parties to the conflict, not as a mediator seeking to maintain a false balance between occupier and occupied, but as an advocate for justice, equality, and human rights. The pursuit of peace cannot be held hostage to political expediency or the narrow interests of individual nations. It requires a collective effort, guided by the principles of international law and a shared commitment to a future free from violence and oppression. The people of Rafah, like countless others caught in the crossfire of this seemingly endless conflict, deserve more than just our sympathy. They deserve our unwavering support and solidarity. Their resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity stands as a testament to the indomitable human spirit. Their unwavering hope for a better future, a beacon of light in a region shrouded in darkness. The Rafah bombing, while a stark reminder of the human cost of inaction, must also serve as a catalyst for change, a call to action for all who believe in a world where peace and justice prevail. In the aftermath of the Rafah bombing, the air is thick with the cries for justice. Justice for the innocent lives extinguished, for the families torn apart, for the futures stolen. But justice in this context transcends mere retribution. It necessitates a fundamental shift in the dynamics of the conflict, a dismantling of the systems of oppression that have perpetuated this cycle of violence for far too long. True justice lies in ensuring that such atrocities never happen again. The path to peace in the region is fraught with obstacles, its course littered with the wreckage of failed agreements and broken promises. Yet, the pursuit of this elusive goal remains the only moral imperative. It requires a commitment from all parties to engage in dialogue, to abandon the zero-sum mentality that has fueled this conflict for decades, and to embrace a future where both Palestinians and Israelis can coexist in peace and security. This is not a utopian dream, but a necessity, a matter of survival for both peoples. The international community bears a moral responsibility to act as a guarantor of peace, to ensure that any agreement reached is just and equitable, and to provide the necessary support for its implementation. The people of the region, weary of war, yearning for a future free from fear and violence, deserve nothing less. The memory of the Rafah bombing, etched forever in the annals of history, must serve as a constant reminder of the human cost of inaction, a call to action for all who believe in a world where peace reigns supreme.